Thursday, April 16th, according to my calendar. And this is our check-in on community outreach tasks. Before we get started on the agenda, I'd like to go around and have everybody introduce themselves. What's your name? Where are you from? And if you have anything that's not on the agenda that you want to share with us today in 30 seconds or less, go ahead. So let's start with Luke.
Hi, I'm Luke McCormick. I'm a web developer and marketer in San Ramon, California. I'm always looking for ways to spread the word about Backdrop, and I feel like in this particular time of crisis, we're sort of more relevant than ever. So I'd love to get that word out.
Thanks. Tim? Oh, I think you're muted. Tim.
I am. Background noise here. I'm Tim, St. Paul Tim on the internet. And I am reporting from Deerwood, Minnesota this week, as for the last few weeks. And I've been working a little bit on the CMS Philly camp, and social media has dropped a bit the last week or two. But anyways, yeah, nothing new to report.
Okay. Joseph, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Joseph from Las Vegas, and I'm just here to see what other people have to talk about.
Great. I'm Jen Lampton from Oakland, California, and I am very excited today about this fantastic shelf that Nate built over the weekend, because we now finally have enough space to put all of our games on it, which is exciting. And we have some books and other stuff. So anyway, I'm sitting in front of it today, which I don't usually do, because I want to see what it looks like in the videos. It's a little busy, I guess, but I'm excited about it. So that's my non-agenda item. All right, back to the agenda. Last community outreach meeting 2 weeks ago, we had Tim and Luke working on a list of what kind of data we wanted to collect on our people. We have decided to review that 2 weeks from now on April 30th. Just sort of a brainstorm of what it is we want, and then we can figure out what tools we have currently to get it. Even if it's just a spreadsheet, that's probably better than nothing, which is what we have now. 2 weeks ago, we also were talking about increasing theme adoption, and we might be able to do that if we had some better example themes. We might be able to do that if we had might be able to get better example themes if we had a better set of things that all themes should be able to cover. And so we came up with the idea of including some example views inside the style guide module, so that we could just say, if you're going to contribute a theme, please make sure everything in the style guide looks good in your theme. And that would be really easy for people to check against. I had some ideas after the meeting too, that we should also put one of every core layout in there, so that you could check all of your core layouts and make sure that they were supported by your theme. Doc Loma also had some comments that he thought we should get administrative elements in there. So if you're working on an admin theme, in particular for us who are maintaining the 7 theme and Backdrop, it would be really good to have some of those common elements in there too. And so I created a couple of issues in the queue this morning just to try and note that it would be good to find a way to include those. Maybe not in the main style guide module, but we could have like a sub module for admin themes, or a sub module for layouts, or however we wanted to organize that in a way we thought made sense for people. We also have a lot more to do with theme stuff. I don't know, Tim, if you have, or Luke, if you've had any thoughts in the last few weeks about how that could be improved even more, but I think we were on a really good thought train last time, and I would love to continue moving in that direction with making it easier on people.
That question?
But just if you had anything else you wanted to add.
No. Although I found that sort of natural scope creep has slowed me down with my thought of having like a sample site, and so my thought is to sort of skip past that and make a mechanism to use the style guide as like a way to show off each theme with the plan to include, more realistic content later when possible. But it seems like the idea of being able to display what the themes look is important enough that it's worth, MVPing it and just getting something out there.
Yeah. Anyone else have any other thoughts on theme stuff?
Well, Luke and I did meet and talk a little bit about what he's working on, and so I'm going to try and keep collaborating with him if I can.
That sounds great. All right, so next on the agenda is to talk about events. Tim, do you want to give us an update on Webcam Philly?
CMS or Philly CMS, whichever it is.
CMS.
So they, what is the, we should get the URL in here. It is CMS Philly, I think, .org. So they were, as of a couple of weeks ago, still promoting this as a virtual, well, they had switched to virtual, but early in their plan. And they were focused on sort of WordPress and Drupal. We contacted and asked about having more of a backdrop presence, and they were enthusiastic and supportive. They've extended the deadline a couple of times to get more sessions in. And we've got about 3 or 4 backdrops. Actually, maybe only 2 officially backdrop. One, Jeff has submitted one on Vue or something in Lando, I think. And I still haven't got mine in. So, but we'll have at least 3 backdrop sessions, I think.
That's
They
great.
added us to the webpage as well. Although I think they they miscapitalized it in one place.
I saw that.
So we should probably ask them to fix that. But yeah, they've definitely updated the website to better reflect that. I'm still interested in ideas. Well, either getting some more back. We got till the 19th, I think, is the latest deadline to get some more sessions in. I'm particularly interested in a CMS camp, like doing something that will appeal to more to just people who come looking for backdrop, right? If you're there for WordPress, like what could we present on that might have some crossover appeal and still expose you to backdrop? And I'm not sure if I've had to come up with a really good idea for a session like that yet. That's all.
That's great. Tim, I keep saying Tim when I mean Luke. Sorry, I'm not entirely all focused yet today. Luke.
I think today's Wednesday, so
When Tim and I were talking about session ideas last week, we talked a little bit about the session that I've given several times before, which is very specific to backdrop and very technical about upgrading from Drupal 7. And we decided to make it a little bit more platform agnostic and talk about moving to backdrop from anywhere else. So it now became more of a like data movement session, which Tim and I were like, oh my gosh, Luke would love this. This is totally right up his alley.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to make it slightly less technical, so maybe it won't have any live demo examples, or maybe one live upgrade at the very end. I'll just do very beginning of Drupal 7 to very end of backdrop, just so everyone can see that it only takes 30 seconds to run the update script or whatever. But in the course of the talk, it's mostly going to be slides, and it's going to be talking about different ways you can move to backdrop from other platforms. And so I didn't know if you were going to be available on that Friday, if you wanted to work on that with me, because you could be a co-presenter. And I think that might be something that, because you're super passionate about, you could do a really good job on. So that was just a
like yes, and yes.
Yay!
But to make it happen, like, when is this?
It's
Friday, May 1st.
Friday, May 1st. So it's currently on release day for backdrop. But we do have feature freeze on the 1st. So the 1st shouldn't be a huge, like, everybody's really busy working on stuff day. It should be a all the stuff we put in on the before or on the 1st is fine, and we'll just release it day. But we had talked last week a little bit about asking the powers that be about pushing the release day to maybe following the weekend or something. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but so even though it's release day, I'm still planning on doing sessions at the camp, and I'm hoping that I can attend most of the rest of the camp too, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So Friday, May 1st. Okay, so I will ping you, Luke, then after this meeting with my ideas on what I want to do for that talk. I think I jotted a bunch of it down into a text file last week, so that's not a very good way to document it, but at least I have it written down. Okay, and then there are 2 other events too that I wanted to mention. Drupal Camp Colorado, which is in August. I think they're sort of tentatively planning on doing something in person and online, but if they're not allowed to meet in person, then they'll do it all online. So again, it's the kind of thing that those of us who might not normally be able to travel to Colorado could participate in. So that's kind of exciting. If you are interested in supporting the Drupal Association, they're also doing sort of a big fundraising campaign where your registration for the camp will go to the Drupal Association to help them give money to the community, which I thought was kind of nice. Then at Drupal Camp Asheville, they're sort of in the same boat. Their events are
July 10th through 12th.
I think it's like 2 weeks before Colorado, July 10th through 12th. And they're doing the same thing where they want to be in person, but they're planning on doing at least part of it online. And if they can't meet entirely, they'll do the whole thing online. So if you are interested in participating in these online conferences and the one on May 1st is too soon or doesn't work, or you didn't get a session in because you didn't know about it until right now, there are other opportunities. And I'm really excited about this because I really love events in general. I love getting to talk to everybody and learn new stuff. And I don't know, just community, getting to spend time in community is really fun. And the fact that all these events are online is sort of changing the possibility of what we are able to participate in, because there's, cost and time associated with traveling to events, and it's hard on, your body with time changes and whatever. And the fact that you can just tune into a camp on the East Coast on your time zone, be like, oh, I'm in California, so I want not a 6 a.m. session, please. And then you can talk to everybody who's there and you can participate without actually all the travel. It seems like it could be really good for us. It could be good for, all of the community who isn't normally able to participate in the events now can do it online. And also really good for Backdrop, where there are things where we might not normally be able to have a presence, and now we do. Tim did a great job of reaching out to the people at the CMS Philly camp and making sure that Backdrop was on their website and talking to people to make sure there were going to be sessions. And I just think it's great to be able to demonstrate our presence in a way that's more visible to everybody else than if we had to have one person there in person rather than 4 people there online. So
yeah, no, this actually ties into what I really briefly alluded to in my opening statement. Is that, and I want to be very careful not to suggest that in net this is that C19 is in any way a positive thing, but they're like the disruption that it's causing has some bright sides, and one of the things that I think is this sudden realization of the entire world into the kind of virtual projects that we've been doing for years. That in itself is valuable, and in particular, there's an itch of my own that to my astonishment, it looks like it's finally going to get scratched. Is that after years and years of going to DrupalCons and various camps? Jen, as you know, I've always kind of been keen on the recording aspects of things like that, and sort of very interested in that. And I've been disappointed for years that all this energy goes into camps and meetups and groups, and then I mean until recently mostly they just dissipate and go away, and like nobody ever knows that it happens again after people go through huge energy to put together instructional things. But even now that they're recorded, like the recordings are just scattered in ways that seem to lose most of their value. I mean, there's this incredible resource in the world of just thousands and thousands of very competent, motivated professionals putting together really good presentations that nobody ever sees because they're just not indexed or cataloged anyway. And I feel like now that all the camps, I mean, this is sort of an opportunity where the video portion of it, rather than being the unloved stepchild that nobody thinks about, like becomes preeminent, kind of like bringing a little bit of that extra into the fold where that becomes captured and thought about. I don't want to rant too much longer, but just like one of the things that I've always been stunned about is that camp and DrupalCon websites always look into the future. They're always like, it's coming up. When you get there, come meet us to have drinks at the thing, and nobody seemed to notice that like you've just recorded 100 hours of incredibly important information, and like there's no follow-up. There's no like ask questions. There's no index it. There's no transcripts of things. Like there's all these like super easy things you could do to maximize the value of that no one ever does. And maybe it's going to start happening. Anyway, rant over. Well,
Look, I think more of that is happening maybe than you're aware of, but not maybe enough. But there are, Jen and I both know Kevin Thel very well, who's done has been not just recording, but also working to index. And I know some of the camps I'm still getting regular tweets from mid-camp promoting the sessions from a month ago. So they're doing, they seem to be making a real effort to leverage that material, to publicize it after the fact. Not saying that more can't be done, but I just want to acknowledge that some people are putting a lot of work into that already.
Okay, well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's starting to happen. I just got the ping for Drupal TV, which I saw for the first time last week. I was like, oh, this is finally something that I thought we'd have 6 years ago. But it's good to have it now, and I'm happy that it looks like that's gonna become a thing now. And even after the virus goes away, I feel like that'll become more of a reality.
I think it's. I'd like to think about other ways that this is changing, and like as we're doing these virtual events, it occurred to me like that doing a canned session that I've done 3 times before and has been recorded 3 times before is less rewarding because it's already on the internet. So I don't know. I feel a little bit like there might be more pressure, which isn't a bad thing, but to come up with fresh content, especially if it's all virtual and all available online, like simply repeating. When you're repeating it in person, you're repeating it in front of a group of people that haven't seen it. But when you're doing it online and somebody can just, click a link next to the link and see the exact same thing or something very similar, so that's another way that this is changing. And I'm raising that because I don't know how to respond to that yet. Like, if I should do the same session again or not in an online setting like this. I'm also wondering about, as we strategize, like where to put our efforts. I like the CMS Philly event because it's a non-specific event. When I think about Drupal Camp Asheville and Drupal Camp Colorado, I start wondering about, well, what is a regional online event? It's not really regional anymore, right? Part of Drupal Camp Asheville is going to Asheville. And if it's not, then it's just, it's organized by them. And that's, I mean, I'm only bringing this up because I'm curious to see how that plays out. And it's like, you know, I'm really curious to see what participation is going to be. Will people, you know, will now more people go to lots of camps, or will they be more selective about the one that they choose to participate in?
Well, it is
If they're
interesting. I mean, this is something that we've kind of faced, you know, throwing camps for a while. We're like, is the camp for the people in the city that are making it, or is the camp to draw people who aren't in the city to the city, or is it both? And then like when you're doing session selection, you also have to be like, well, are we just going to hire or like select all these sessions that are from people who are big names and important but aren't part of our local community, or do we need to try and get like a whole bunch of local people who we maybe don't know so well? And it's always been kind of a balance of that. And it's interesting here because I feel like these local communities need a way to have an event for the local people, even though they can't get out of their house, right? So they can't travel the short distance to be together. So that putting it online makes sense. But that also sort of opens the floodgates for the people from outside. So maybe that balance will really shift, and you'll end up seeing a lot more people like us who are like, we can finally attend all the events, where they're like, wait, this wasn't for you guys. This is for us. But that is an interesting thing. I would say that this isn't going to go on forever. And I would imagine it'll return, like, even though, Luke, you're right in that this will bring to the forefront a lot of things that people might have been, you know, oh, I don't really need a web presence. My business is mostly local. And now all of a sudden, oh, I haven't looked at my website in 4 years and I really need to update that. After that, I think there'll be an awareness of that. But I do think that things will sort of return to the focus on the local, which will be interesting. I also feel your pain, Tim, with the repeating sessions thing. And even though like I tend to do the same session over and over again, I try and do it differently every time. And so it's like the best recording might have been from 3 years ago, but the best content was from last week. But yeah, it's tough too, especially when, you know, there isn't a different audience, or maybe you don't even get to know exactly who is in the room because you only see 6 faces on Zoom while you're giving the session. Yeah, it's a little different. Fun times we live in, guys. Let's see. Yeah, I also wonder about, so Drupal Camp Asheville and Drupal Camp Colorado, those camps are local in that they're intended for Colorado and Asheville, but they're also specific to Drupal. So it's the kind of thing where I agree CMS Philly feels like a better fit for us because it's like, this is for everybody from all CMSs. But I also still feel like while people are trying to figure out what they're going to do with their Drupal 7 sites, is important that Backdrop be at those Drupal events. I'm not sure it needs to have a huge presence like it does at a CMS camp in the same way, but it would be good just to be like, hey, just, you know, there's an option here that you might not have heard of, or we just want to show you how easy it is. Or, you know, just like a little voice in the corner rather than being like, oh, it's an event for 4 CMSs and a quarter of us are Backdrop people,
Yeah.
Which I think is a lot of better fit for us, really.
Yeah.
Whew, okay, that was a lot of talking. From last time.
Well, let me just, in terms of outreach, I think we should really try to focus some energy in the next 2 weeks on getting participants, current Backdrop users, to hopefully engage with CMS Philly, because this is a chance for us really to like play a role as a, you know, as a partner, or, you know, as a force, as opposed to just being a training or a session at a Drupal camp. So you're right. I think we should participate in all of them, but I'd really like to turn out some people and show, you know, highlight the Backdrop community at CMS Philly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, particularly since we're the Backdrop outreach group, like CMS Philly going from a Drupal specific event to open up, see, like that's in our wheelhouse. like we are first in line of the not actually Drupal, but, you know, amenable to Drupal people world. So it's we shouldn't waste the opportunity.
It might also be worth promoting, like on our social media or a blog post or something that's like, hey, we just were added as a CMS to the CMS Philly website, rather than just being like, come to, you know, CMS Philly. That is kind of a good point, that Luke put out that like it's a big deal that they changed their like with CMS options on their website to include backdrop. So even though we're saying it here, it might be good to broadcast that a little bit more widely. Like, hey, we're real. Guess what? We showed up on these websites. They did it because we had participation. Yeah.
I'll try to get that into Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else on events? No. Okay. So we'd also had a little note here that Luke really pointed out last time that upgrades are really a lot easier coming from 777, and we need to be able to promote that more. I was thinking about, in doing my work for the prep for the CMS Philly camp, of trying to make a video that's just the final step upgrade. That would be really short and like tweetable sort of thing. So I'm going to try and work on that. But in general, if anyone else has any ideas on how to promote upgrades being easier without getting into the weeds, that would be great. Blog posts. So I haven't had a chance to check the blog lately, but I don't think Jack had time to write a post, draft a post about our new PMC members. If that's the case, I'll do one today. I'm going to be busy until 4, but I can do it after that. I will also get in touch with Jack and make sure we're not doing the same thing at the same time. And then it looks like we have a newsletter to send. Oh, maybe I should do that first. So good news on the newsletter front. This week, Nate and I both got emails from MailJet, who is our provider. They landed in our inbox for the first time and included a report on all of the emails that MailJet had been sending for us in the last week, which I thought was hysterical because we've never gotten one of these reports before because our emails from MailJet had been blocked. So I'm like, this is great, because if that email got through, it's likely that like our password reset emails will get through, or other emails that we need to get from MailJet will get through. So I think it's a good time to try, or a reply from their support forum, which is something I hadn't been able to get before either. So if their email is now getting through spam filters, then it might be time to get back on tickets and make some more noise about getting access to our account again. So I will do that today first. And then hopefully that'll get done, and I'll also have time to do the blog post. I don't know what's more important. Maybe at this point I should just do the blog post, because we're about to have 116 released and the 115 newsletter isn't nearly as important. But if we could get access to that, we could send email about other stuff, which would be good. Do you guys have any thoughts? It's more important. Do all the things. Okay, I'll do all the things.
Important.
All right, we talked about events already. Website updates, those are always ongoing. I know Jeff has been working, Jeff and Justin have been working on backdropcms.org server automation stuff. So I just wanted to do a quick shout out to them. I'm not sure there's anything visible that we can see, but I know they're working on like the automated sanitized database backup stuff, which is pretty cool. All right, anything else related to outreach you guys want to talk about, not on the agenda or otherwise?
Well, maybe just mention Jeff's How to Backdrop newsletter that he's been doing every week. So people, if anybody's watching this, be aware of that. Look for it on Twitter or in, I don't know where, howtobackdrop.org, I think is his.
Is it a newsletter or is it a weekly blog post or both?
Well, he advertises it kind of like a newsletter, but it's, I think it's just a link back to to a blog post. He doesn't actually send it out.
Okay.
So, howtobackdrop.com.
Okay. I'm like, I haven't been getting it in my inbox, but.
It's the Backdrop Weekly.
Okay.
So it's, I guess he doesn't use the word newsletter. So I made that up.
Okay. I will check it out.
I saw that today, and it was high on my list of things to check out because I didn't know what it was. That's Jeff, huh? It struck me as sounding a lot like the weekly drop.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what he thinks of it as. And it's like week 7 now. He's been doing this weekly for 7 weeks.
Really?
That's great. I really appreciate his enthusiasm. I think there's also a Zulips channel or topic or whatever it's called on weekly backdrop. Yeah. So if you guys
Yep.
have anything in particular you want to chat about in there, it's an option.
Yep.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then let's go ahead and wrap this meeting up, and we will see you again if you'll be attending the developer check-in in 7 minutes or so. Thanks for joining.
Bye-bye.